Antonio Sanchez. No, I'm just Tony Sanchez is good.
All right. Hey guys, it's Jamie bringing you another episode of Recovery Inspired Hope. And I have my very good friend with me today, Tony Sanchez, who came all the way. Where'd you come all the way from today, Tony?
I live here in Athens. Yeah.
I feel like you're like way in Atlanta way. I never see you anymore.
Well, I do travel a lot, but I do live here. This is home. Athens.
Okay.
Athens is home.
Athens is home. Tony is an amazing leader in recovery here, and he's helping me lead this video series. He's my special guest for it today. This video series is called Athens Recovery and Diversity Inclusion Initiative. We already had an intro a couple weeks ago with Brandy Anderson, who's kind of, helping put things together to create this space, to create this awareness and this education, and to really just create change in whatever way we can figure out is the best way to go about it. So can we start a little bit? Will you tell us a little bit about your recovery story?
Of course. Well, first and foremost, Jamie, thank you for having me here, and thank you for being a part of the conversation. We can't heal if we don't talk about it. We have to actually call things out and really speak truth to power. But as far as my recovery story, so my name is Tony Sanchez, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is that if God willing, if I make it to June 24th, it'll be 20 years since I've had any mind, moon, altering substance.
Wow, 20 years, man.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's a long time. I remember when I couldn't get 20 days, 20 hours. But and the reason that I talk about my recovery is because I believe everyone should have an opportunity to get well, right? And that recovery should always be the expectation. There was a time when I used to live and live to use. There was a time when I lived better in jails and in prison and in institutions. There was a time when I was homeless. There was a time when I ate out of garbage cans. There was a time where I wanted to die. I didn't understand why I could not stop using, no matter what the consequences were. I'm originally from New York City. I was born in Spanish Harlem. My family, my parents are from Puerto Rico, and so I always thought that I was very fortunate, because I had the best of both worlds, living in Harlem and just and in the American culture, but also just the Puerto Rican cuisine and the music and just growing up with two languages. I thought I was again very fortunate. I come from a two-parent home. My parents are still married, and there wasn't any abuse or anything like that. And like any typical family, there's always dysfunction. However, nothing major. However, one of the things that I realized that early on was that there was this need to belong, and that people pleasing piece. And so I did, really good at school. I got good grades. I got skipped from the 7th to the 9th grade. I was a avid reader. I always read, throughout my life. I always, I love learning. I love having conversations. I love new experiences. One of the things that I believe is that all I know is not all that there is. So I tried to stay open-minded and to receive new information. However, getting skipped to the 7th to the 9th grade and all that wasn't cool in my, and not that it wasn't cool, but you know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to belong to the, I saw the people who could make $1 out of 15 cents. Like, you know what I'm saying? I grew up in the projects, in where there was high unemployment rate, where there was high substance use. Like even growing up, I knew when I was growing up as a kid, heroin was a big thing in my neighborhood, and I knew where the heroin spots were. Like it was easier to get heroin than fresh vegetables where I grew up at. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of community that I grew up in. But I didn't understand that then. Like it was, I wouldn't want to be I didn't want to be anywhere else. I don't know if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I love my community. I love my people. I love the music, the smell, everything. You know what I mean? Like I'm grateful for my upbringing and for my community. However, that need to belong was so strong, and I didn't know how to express it. I think that's part of, that's part of the challenge, especially in the Black community. Like I don't remember a time where we were given, as a man of color, right, where we were given permission to express our feelings. You know what I'm saying? And so early on, I learned how to stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so I started to one of the things in the Puerto Rican like cultures, I mean, there's just like festivities and like there was always like alcohol and you know what I mean, and big dinners during the holidays, and that was my introduction to using. You know what I'm saying? Like sipping, taking sips off of, the adults' drinks. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And what happened was that I started to act different under the influence, and instead of being chastised, I got what I thought was praise. People were like, Tony, like, you showed out dancing, or, it kind of, and the attention, I didn't like the way that I felt, but Jamie, with the attention allowed me to, I wanted more of that. You know what I mean? And so as I got older into my early teens, in the community, people were smoking marijuana. I tried it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. However, I liked the attention. Tony, last night, man, you was wilding out. You know what I mean? And that level of acceptance made me want more. You know what I'm saying? Of that. And I understood that if I was under the influence, I behaved a certain way that gave me the attention that I craved and the acceptance that I craved. And so that led me to using more. And about the age of 16, I was introduced to cocaine, and I just fell in love. And that was it. On that substance, I felt like I was in control. I can talk to anybody. I can dance. I can do whatever. I felt so confident that it became my crutch. In the beginning, it was fun, Jamie. Yeah. Then it became work, and then it became painful. I became addicted to cocaine, and I used cocaine for about 20 years, 25. Wow. Yeah. And from cocaine, and it started as inhaling or snorting it, but then eventually led to crack cocaine, smoking crack. And it led to degradation. I lost everything. I lost, I think the biggest part is that I lost myself, to the point where using became like the ultimate goal every day. And I went from getting, from being, skipped from the 7th to the 9th grade to, going to college and entering the engineering program, to homeless and hopeless, unemployed, unemployable, like just living a life of degradation. Mm-hmm. And then I became really, really angry and bitter. And I, at the time, this is during the crack epidemic in New York City. And so, the language that was being used then was, that we were addicts and junkies and super predators. And it wasn't, so it was what, so those are the words that were being used, but those are the words that I started to believe myself to be.
Telling yourself.
Yeah. And so, it was, years of in and out of jails, in and out of prisons. There was periods of time, when I would come home from prison or jail where, because I wouldn't use when I was incarcerated. It was only out in the community, and again, it was, and I can relate that to the fear of belonging, just not thinking that I was enough, you know what I'm saying? And not understanding, like, I was so angry, and I was so angry, right? I was angry at myself. I was angry at my community, but I was angry at God. Like, why would you put me here to be at the time, a crackhead? Like, you know what I mean? And that's the language that I believed. But there was periods where I would, you know, early, when I was released, where I had my weight up and I was cleaned up and everything, and I could always disguise my true feelings. Like I can go into a crowd, I can hide in a crowd. I could always, be the life of the party. So it was easy to, not easy. I won't say easy, but I mean, I had the opportunity to get into, relationships with women who would love me until they found out, who I really was. And then they would have to leave, you know what I'm saying? Because I just didn't even know how to, I was a boy I was a little boy, trapped in a man's body, if that makes sense. I did meet my wife in New York, in the Bronx. She had moved into my neighborhood, and we started dating, and eventually we got married. And I thought that marriage was going to change everything. And the reason why is because I saw my father being, a husband and a father, and, being the head of the household. And I wanted to emulate that. But marriage didn't change. You know what I mean? It didn't stop me from using. I continued to go in and out of jails even after I got married. And then eventually we moved to Athens in 1995. Right? I came down to Athens, and we came to visit my wife's mother, who lived in this town. And I never wanted to come to the South. I just, you hear all these stories about the South, the racism and all of that. And I just I didn't want to come down here. But when I came to Athens, it felt like Mayberry. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, look at this. Like, I've never saw anything like this. I was coming out of New York City. It was totally different. Within a week, I was working, you know what I mean? And there was this new hope. And so I try to do the geographical cure, but wherever I go, I take me with me. And what I found out later on is that they had cocaine in Athens too. And so eventually I started using again, and the vicious cycle started. And I started getting incarcerated here. And there was a period from like 95 to 2000 where I would be going back and forth. It would be, I would have warrants out, in Athens, and I would go back to New York and hide out in New York, and then I would get in trouble in New York, and then I would come to Athens, and it was going, back and forth. And through all of this, my wife stayed with me, you know what I mean? Although she was here, she was in Athens, right? And I was, in 2001, I got arrested, and that was the last time I was here in Athens. I got arrested in Clark County Jail, and I was, again, really angry. I was 35 years old, and I was I looked in the mirror, and I saw that I was aging, and I was still doing the same thing that I was doing like for 20 years. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I got to the place where I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I got to the place where like my wife, my parents, nobody would accept my phone calls. I couldn't make commissary, right? And I was angry because I felt that they abandoned me, right? But I was still really, really angry with God. I was angry at the correctional officers or the sheriffs that, at the Clark County Jail for making me stand up to count, you know what I mean? Or tell me when I can eat, there's a time, Jamie, where you, no matter what I tell myself, there's a time where the truth has a way of piercing the heart. And those times came to me like late at night, like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, when I was laying on my bunk and it was just me with me. When I wasn't in the day room lying about, of all the, just, or just trying to be somebody else. Mm-hmm. There's a time where the truth just pierces the heart, and you can't I couldn't lie to myself anymore. And that's when I asked myself, could it be the drugs? Because what I could connect to was that the reason that I kept, it wasn't that I wanted to stop using. What happened was that I wanted to stop going to jail, right? But I made the connection that every time I used, I got locked up. Mm-hmm. So there was a 12-step meeting that was coming into they were coming in on Monday nights, and I started to go to that meeting. And at first, I found every reason to disqualify myself. Why I was different. I'm from New York. You guys are from the South. You don't understand. And then it just hit me. It clicked one day. I just had this moment of clarity. Because I said to myself, during the meeting, while I'm disqualifying myself and thinking about why everybody's saying things that don't make sense, what came to my mind was that if I was the cool one, if I had all the answers, why is it that I'm going to go back after this meeting to a cell full of other men while these people are going to go home to their families?
Right.
So that was the beginning of, or the crack in the armor that allowed some new information to come in. And so the next time I went to the meeting, instead of asking like why, I started to ask questions like how do you do that? How do you not use? Mm-hmm. How do you not like argue with your significant other and storm out the house? Or, how do you go to work and bring your money home? I started asking those type of questions because I didn't know how to do any of that. The reality was, again, that I looked like a man. I was grown physically, but emotionally and mentally, I was a little boy. Fast forward, one of the suggestions that they told me in this meeting was that instead of going to the liquor store to celebrate on my release, that I should make a meat. Right? And I took the suggestion. Right. However, the only meeting that I initially found was predominantly white.
Okay. So how did you feel like uncomfortable going in there?
It's something about, I'm blatantly aware even to this day when I walk into a room, how many people of color are in the room. Mm-hmm. Even, in the position that I'm in, I get to, my platform or my, the rooms that I get to walk in now, are pretty cool coming from a place where, I was homeless. However, I'm still blatantly aware. I'm like, who's in the room? It's just something that I do intuitively. And so going into a narcotics, a 12-step meeting, right? Going into a 12-step meeting where it's, it's predominant, 40 or 50 people in the room, and I'm like one out of maybe 3 or 4 people of color in the room, was disheartening, right? Because
out of like 30 or 40.
Yeah, out of 30 or 40. Because what it says to me, right? Like, does my community recover too? Right. Does recovery belong to me as well? Another piece is that, so I'm early on I'm early in recovery, and I didn't know this then, right? But we're supposed to create a welcoming atmosphere, and there's a lot of hugging in 12-step and all of that. Most of the time, I didn't get the hugs, or after the meeting, people just would walk by me. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't really feel welcome. And again, because I didn't see people that looked like me, I internalized that as that recovery, people of color don't really recover. You know what I'm saying?
So where recovery should be all-inclusive, right? That's what we fight for every day with our advocacy and our fighting. You're saying that in the reality in the rooms, it's not? I'm just saying that I didn't know that I don't want to talk my experience. My experience was that, and that in walking into a room that was predominantly white, it made me think that we did not recover. Like, this is, again, and if I go back throughout my history growing up, you know what I'm saying, in my neighborhood where there was poverty and high unemployment rate, you know what I'm saying, it was predominantly black and brown people. You know what I'm saying? When I went to school and I read, the history books, you know what I'm saying, most of the achievements were made by people that didn't look like me. You know what I'm saying? So growing up, the
story that I was told was that we didn't contribute, you know what I'm saying? Or that we weren't smart enough, or, you know what I mean? And we start to believe that even in Harlem, right? In Harlem, like there was, you know, the streets are filled with litter. Like, you can go to the school grounds and you saw, you know, used needles in the crack area. You can see the empty crack vials. But if you go downtown where it's predominantly white, the streets are clean. You don't see any of that. You know what I'm saying? So we start to believe, or I started to believe, that this is where I belonged. You know what I'm saying? So now I come to the South, right? And, you know, I come to the South and I get introduced to recovery through 12-step, and I go to the rooms, and what I see is a room full of white people, and I don't see people that look like me. So initially, you know what I'm saying? Like, what I, you know, is like, man, this is not for me. Right. And I'm not receiving, I'm not feeling welcomed. Right. You know what I mean? But I kept coming because I didn't want to go back to jail. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I like, and it wasn't until I found a meeting that was predominantly of people of color, of black, and that became my home group. And there I felt comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Because and these people had substantial amount of clean time. So what it told me was that, you know, the story, then the narrative changed, where, you know, people like me do have a chance. Right. You know, and as I grew, it was funny, right? So as you know, and as my recovery grew, like when I started to acquire some time, you know, like, you know, and I was into the, you know, the literature, and I was really, you know, connected to the recovery community, to my recovery community, and the foundation was laid. I would go back to that meeting where it was predominantly white, and after the meeting, I would stand right at the door, and I would force everybody to hug me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like,
who wouldn't want to hug?
but it wasn't, and then what I found out, that it wasn't everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it wasn't, you know, it's just, you know, and that, you know, this is an opportunity to change, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, you know, because we don't know, or we don't take time to talk, like we're talking now, Jamie, like, you know, we don't get to see that we have a lot more, although there are differences that need to be acknowledged, but that there's a lot of similarities as well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? A lot of my friends, and you know, they come in all shapes and sizes and colors, and, you know what I mean? Or you know, and people who have helped save my life. You know, I never know who God is going to send, so it's my responsibility to be open. You know, and so, you know, I think that, so that's been, you know, my experience right now.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so like, in the rooms, like, because, you know, I've done some meetings in rooms too, and I have to agree with what you said about them being predominantly white. So why do you think that is?
I think
do you think it has to do, well, I mean, in like the Athens community, for instance, right? A lot of people I know are mandated to come into treatment. Do you think that maybe we need to start the conversation in the courtrooms with the judicial system, with the judges, to see, like, is everybody being afforded the same opportunity to come into treatment?
So I think the conversation should be had in the courtroom, but it should be had everywhere, right? So okay, let's so right now we're in the middle of an opioid epidemic, right? Mm-hmm. That we started talking about really about 5-7 years ago, when middle class white young adults started to die, right? It became a national crisis. Because again, like when I told you, when I was sharing my story, like growing up as a kid in the 60s and in the 70s, heroin was very strong in my community. I knew where to buy a bag of heroin before I could go get, I can get fresh vegetables, right? I talked about that, right? And so but we were called something different. You know what I mean? We were called junkies, and like we were blamed we were blamed for the behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like we were we were animals. You know what I'm saying? So the white
Right.
now you flip it over. 21st century, you got a whole different demographics, and everything has changed. The language has changed.
language, right,
You know what I mean?
everything.
Now it's about love. It's
And
inclusivity.
it's
It's about
disease
connection. It's a
and-
disease. No, they're not criminals. So what we haven't given the black community the opportunity to heal. Like we're not very trusting. You know what I'm saying? Of outsiders, because every time, like growing up, I remember like the police didn't come to serve and protect. It was more of a, like to occupy, to catch. You know, the way that we were, treated. We were treated like animals. The words that were used, like super predators during the crack epidemic. You know what I mean? It wasn't nice. Like, you know what I mean? So the family members who had to deal. So let me back it up, right? So we know that addiction doesn't just it just doesn't impact the individual that's using, but it impacts the whole family, impacts the whole community. You know what I'm saying? And during that time, because of the words that were being used, the approach that was being used, we were criminalized, we were locked up. You know what I'm saying? That family members had to bury their family members in shame. They had to suffer in silence. But now it's totally different. You know what I'm saying? Now we got billboards, with the faces of people who died. And I don't think anybody should die from a chronic preventable health condition, right? Nobody. I don't care who you are, right? However, there's still a lot of trauma in the black community that has not been addressed. You know what I'm saying? So we are not very trusting of any of, you know what I mean? Like this whole new approach. As a matter of fact, it feels disrespectful because of that. Like, you know what I mean? My brother-in-law, 2 years ago, overdosed off of heroin. My first cousin, Irvin, he died off of fentanyl. I mean, he died in a hot summer day without air conditioning, right? So they found him. They found him through the smell of his decomposing body. You know what I'm saying? Like this is still going on in our communities, but like even the services and the resources that are available now are not even distributed in an equitable fashion. You know what I'm saying? Like Narcan is not going to, they're not sending Narcan to the hood. Like, you know what I'm saying? They just, not on the same rate that they would on the neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? So it's very, it's like it's like nothing has changed. You know what I'm saying? But however, like having these conversations, like I really commend you, Jamie, for, like just even, inviting me here to have this conversation, right? Because like the solution is not for us to be separate, right? Mm-hmm. I think the solution is to have tough conversations so that there can be some healing and the communities can come together to support each other. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, and just like, I'm here in a curious sense, like, because to me it's like, wow, I had no idea, so it's like, how can I have any part in it if I am not even aware, you know?
One of the things that we've done is, in the black community, or what's happened in our communities, is that we've been blamed for what happened there. Like, so you take a community, like I don't know anybody, or I didn't know anybody during the crack epidemic, or, even now in the black community who I don't know anybody who has boats and planes, you know what I'm saying? But then, so this virus, this infection, this disease is introduced to our community, right? And then we're being blamed for getting sick. You know what I'm saying? Instead of looking at, you know what I'm saying? Like we are being blamed as perpetrators of our own fate. You know what I'm saying? Like, and because of it, we were criminalized. We were, families were. I mean, the impact, the ramifications are huge. We're talking about the dismantling of a family. You know what I'm saying? Where, like we know that there's data that shows that black men go to jail and prisons at a higher rate than white men. You know what I'm saying? Even though there's no true, like, there's the data shows that not that they commit more crime. However, the rate of incarceration is a lot higher.
And the rate of incarceration over treatment as well.
Yeah.
Yes. I know Brandy had shared some statistics with me, and it's like, when we look at the numbers, the numbers don't lie. And I really, one thing I caught, what I really loved what you said was that, like, growing up, my family is from Sicily. So I grew up in a very, like, big families, a lot of alcohol, big dinners, stuff like that. And with the Sicilian men, like, stuffing your feelings, you know what I mean? So even talking about that and, bringing that out for the healing aspect of it all, and for us to work together and to know, like, well, what are some barriers that could come up with the recovery community, trying to make it more diverse and having more Black people come into recovery. What are some things that could be barriers, you know what I mean, as a recovery advocate? And it's like, oh, well, you're saying that Black people are not supposed to share their feelings or ask for help.
So the stigma is one of the biggest reasons why people don't get help, right? Especially in the Black community, what we believe, you know what I'm saying? So there's little control that we have as Black men, you know what I mean? As a growing up, you know what I mean? What I believe, we've been emasculated in so many different ways that we try to hold on to the little bit of power that we have, you know what I'm saying? And we were taught to not, show our feelings. You can't show your feelings. You don't have time to feel. Like, that is not you, because you gotta, every time you come outside, we're competing with each other, but we're also trying to assimilate to a system that wasn't designed for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this is, whether we speak it out loud or not, we become blatantly aware of what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, every time I get, I'm not like, like, I know there's certain neighborhoods that I can't really go into, like, you know what I mean? Or not that I can't go into, but that I have to be aware when I do enter. Like, you know what I'm saying? If I go to, like, even if I go to a doctor's office, or if I walk into any room and there's white people, you know what I'm saying? Like, where there's, especially like even like older white women, my job instinctively is to disarm them with my personality. Like, this is something that I know, because my goal is to make it home at all times. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it may seem like I'm exaggerating, but it becomes, like, I've been doing it for so long, right? That it becomes natural. It's like breathing to me. You know what I'm saying? And this is not, you know what I mean? Like, again, this is not to talk bad about any group of people, this is about my experience as a person of color in this country. Right. You know what I'm saying? Again, I've never had the opportunity to really express how I felt. The system wasn't designed for me. And the impression was that nobody really cared. Again, going back to what we were called, super predators, junkies, crackheads, you know what I mean? We were criminalized, we were thrown in jail, you know what I mean? Even the way that the laws were created, you know what I mean? Because crack was a predominantly, and I'm doing the air quotes, a Black problem, you know what I mean? You got more time if you were caught with crack as opposed if you was caught with powder cocaine, because powder cocaine was considered a white person's drug. You know what I'm saying? So those disparities, those the intersectionality between systemic racism and behavioral health is evident. We know that there's some challenges, some behavioral health challenges, like if somebody's in a drug-induced psychosis or having a mental health challenge and we dial 911, we know that the ambulance is not coming, that the police are coming, and the possible outcome of the interaction between police and the Black community can all, at times can be fatal. You know what I'm saying? When you try, so there's so many different things. We're talking about poverty. We're talking about, the lack of health care. We're talking about, we're talking about a traumatized community who has been, given the short end of the stick, for generation upon generation upon generation. So just saying, hey, come on, recovery's for you too, is not really realistic. You know what I'm saying? Again, another thing too is that, if there shouldn't be anything about us without us, right? So if we're creating opportunities for the Black community, then there needs to be representation from the Black community in leadership positions so that other people can say, hey, this is for me too. Right. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not just the fact that you are in recovery from substance use, but it also needs to be representation from, there's a cultural diversity, cultural awareness, cultural humility is really, really important. For the Latino community, there should be people that speak Spanish. You know what I'm saying? Services should be provided in the language, the predominant language that we're trying to serve. You know what I mean? Like, if you have an organization, right, and that serves the community, then the organization should be a representation of the community. So if the community is comprised of or if the community is diverse, but you have all white staff, you may need to look at that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some things that can be done. You know what I'm saying? That raises awareness and shows that we're working toward that level of recovery for all type attitude.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing everything and being so honest and vocal and just allowing me to have you on this platform so that we can do the things that need to be done and have those tough conversations, having the space for the tough conversations. And, I think that it's something that we're going to continue forward with.
Yeah. I think that, I just want to, again, thank you, Jamie, for inviting me here and just, and creating this platform so that we can have this discussion. You know what I mean? And I want to say that this is, there's a lot of work to be done. And this is not about blaming anybody. Right. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you and I come from different backgrounds, but here we are sitting together having a conversation. You know what I'm saying? We're not arguing. We're not fighting. You know what I mean? You may not even agree with everything that I said. You know what I mean? And that's okay. But creating the space that we can actually be heard and believed is paramount to begin the healing that will eventually lead to inclusivity so that our communities can be stronger. My goal, I'm 55 years old, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in the last season, right? And I'm good, right? But I want to create opportunities for my grandson, right? Like, because what I know is that behavioral health challenges run through my family, right? So I don't know if he's going to be impacted, you know what I mean, by it. But if my grandson Desmond ever has any challenges, right? I want to be a part of a community that's going to embrace him. You know what I'm saying? And not just embrace my grandson, but embrace everyone. Right. You know what I'm saying? So this is, in me advocating for my grandson, I'm advocating for your kids. You know what I mean? And your kids to come, you know what I mean? So we need all of us to be a part of this conversation and working together so that we can create opportunities of recovery for everyone.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
So much. All right. Well, this was part 1 of Athens Recovery and Diversity Inclusion Initiative video series. We will see you next time on Recovery Inspired Hope, and make sure you subscribe to Jamie Tall on YouTube.
All right. Bye.